listening to
Catholic Sprout,
the daily podcast for Catholic kids that strives to plant seeds of faith.
Hey Sprouts, I'm Clara from Holy Heroes, and today I'm going to continue telling you the story of Our Lady of Champion. Yesterday we talked about how Our Lady appeared to Adele in the forests of Wisconsin. After the apparitions, Adele set out on the mission that Our Lady had given her. Adele began traveling throughout the forests of Wisconsin to teach the Catholic children the catechism of the church. She would walk for miles and miles from log cabin to log cabin, visiting families and educating their children. As Adele walked through the forest, she realized that she indeed had become the missionary that she had vowed to become on her first communion date, walking sometimes as far as 50 miles from her home in Champion, Wisconsin. Even though she was often alone in the forest, going from house to house, she wasn't afraid because she knew she was fulfilling Our Lady's call and mission for her life. After 2 years of traveling, one day Adele came back from one of her many visits to families in the forest, and she found that her father had cleared the area where Our Lady had appeared to her and was building a chapel. It was very small, just 10 feet by 12 feet wide. But slowly, more and more people came to visit this small chapel in the woods to see where Our Lady had appeared to Adele, who at this point was well known in the area for her love of Our Lady and her work in teaching the children the catechism. Eventually, so many people were coming to the woods to see the chapel that Adele's father had built that they all agreed a new one would have to be built to accommodate the amount of people who were coming. A new chapel was erected with the help of neighbors and friends that could seat 100 people, and yet still there were so many people coming that it seemed too small. After 7 years of walking from house to house all along the Green Bay Peninsula, Adele became too weak to continue Our Lady's mission on foot. Her parish priest suggested instead of traveling from house to house, maybe they could bring the children to Adele. Adele was joined by 5 other women, and together they lived in a small log farmhouse and became Third Order Franciscans. Though they weren't consecrated nuns, they all wore a black habit and were called sisters by all who knew them. Alongside this small farmhouse, a boarding school and convent was built. They named it St. Mary's Academy, and soon it was filled with children. Together, the sisters and the children would study, pray, and live together, happy in their little house in the woods. Because many of the children were poor, they couldn't pay to stay at the boarding school with the sisters. Instead, they would rely on generous donations from local neighbors to keep everyone fed and clothed. One afternoon, the sisters came to Adele and told her that they were out of food. There was not even enough to make breakfast for the children tomorrow. Adele told them, "Sisters, do not despair. Gather the children, and we will all pray together." Adele, the sisters, and all their students gathered together and made a procession, praying the rosary around their property. After they had finished the 4th mystery of the rosary, they suddenly heard a noise by the chapel door. As they rushed over to see what it was, they discovered eggs and a huge bag of flour had been left at the chapel door. They also found apples and even warm bread and butter. The sisters and children were so excited but didn't know who had left all this food for them. Adele told them, "We'll take everything to the kitchen, but first, let's finish the rosary and say thank you to the Blessed Mother and all the kind neighbors who have shared their food, with no expectation of thanks." Together they prayed the 5th mystery of the rosary and went to bed, fed and happy, and confident that Our Lady would continue to take care of them. The story could end there, but there's still one more important thing that happened to Adele. Come back tomorrow and I'll tell you the rest of the story, which includes the largest forest fire ever in American history.
That's it for Catholic Sprouts today. We'll be back tomorrow, but until then, continue to grow in your faith and truly sprout into the beautiful creation that God created you to be.
Holy Heroes brings the joy of the faith to families through unique games, books, and free online resources. You can learn more about Our Lady of Champion at holyheroes.com/champion. And don't forget to sign up for our free weekly Mass Prep program for weekly videos, printables, quizzes, coloring pages, and so much more. Go to holyheroes.com/massprep to sign up for this free program.
This podcast is part of the Spoke Street Network. For more great podcasts, visit spokestreet.com.